So, of course, we have to do the recap of the hoedown at the White House on Friday with Trump and JD Vance, VP JD Vance, and they had to check um, Donald Trump. I mean, they had to check Zelensky, right? And everybody, you saw the clips, right?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it. I always was offended when America's representatives always went in there meek, mild, and or just totally incoherent, like Harris did when she was sent over to Europe because Biden couldn't handle it. I like this. He just, this is the way to do it. This is how the deal's done. When you have a position of strength, use it.
Mm-hmm.
No reason to be acting like you don't. So it works. Let's watch.
Okay.
This thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
Hey, I want to respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2014.
2014.
Yeah. So
I was not here.
Yeah, but
that's exactly right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversations, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know that what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean. and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
that.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on
position
this
to
question.
dictate that.
That's exactly
Remember
what
this.
you're
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very
You will
good.
feel influence.
We're going to feel very
I'm
good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about
From the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a good
Brown,
position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not
cards.
playing
But
cards.
right now, you don't.
I'm very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think
You're
you-
gambling with World War
What
III.
what you're
You're
thinking about?
gambling with
What you're
World
thinking
War
about?
III. And
You-
what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's
with all
backed
respect to
you
your
far
country.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once? This
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States
what
of
are you speaking
America
about?
and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not
Yeah.
speaking loudly. Your country's
Can I-
in big
can-
trouble.
can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No,
Can
you've
I
done a lot of
answer?
talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not
I
winning.
know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of
we are
coming out
staying,
okay because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet.
You haven't
not
been
only
allowed.
in this
We
cabinet.
gave you, through
I
this
said thank
stupid
you.
president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and your
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
If you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me-
equipment,
you invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak-
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this.
Again,
I tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of times thank you to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running low
I
on
know.
soldiers.
Don't-
Listen,
don't please,
you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then
President.
then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you what-
That
what
wasn't
this
with me.
means. It
That was
wasn't
with
with you.
a guy named Biden who was not a smart person.
This
That
is
was
your,
with,
this
that was
is
with
your
Obama.
president. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry.
It's going to be a tough deal to make, because the attitudes have to change.
What if Russia breaks ceasefire? What if Russia...
Interesting.
That's all you're gonna say.
Interesting.
Well,
Like, in other words, Zelensky campaigns all through Philly and Pennsylvania to defeat Trump, and now he's here trying to ask Trump for help. You know, stick it. We don't need him. If Russia took Ukraine, we wouldn't be any worse off, any better off than we are right now, other than the fact we'd be better off because there's no incipient war going on and less opportunity for it to escalate, and let Putin put him on the wall or whatever the Russians are still doing these days. So it's like the American Revolution. If the revolutionaries had lost in what they started in 1776, they would have swung at the end of an English rope. He started the Civil War. He didn't exactly start it, but he didn't take care of the Nazism that had arisen in Ukraine. He didn't take care of well,
Well, this
the
is
crime and sex trafficking, and he's trying to help the U.S. be a conduit to spread the rainbow, and the rest of Europe doesn't, well, really the world doesn't like it. So Russia is stepping in. And in there, the Ukrainians have said, we've been part of the Russian thing for a millennium. We want to go back. It's like Texas saying, hey, we want to go back to the United States. Ukraine was the biggest state in the old Soviet Union. So here we go.
So this is a remark that Trump made after that White House visit.
Mr. President, how long do you think it will take for Zelensky to want peace and be invited back to the White House?
Well, he says he wants it now. He wants to come back right now, but I can't do that.
Are you going to end?
What does Zelensky need to do to restart talks with you?
He's got to say, I want to make peace. He doesn't have to stand there and say about Putin this, Putin that, all negative things. He's got to say, I want to make peace. I don't want to fight a war any longer. His people are dying. He doesn't have the cards, just so you understand it, okay? I can tell you.
So
See, Biden was in a position of running afoul of the Section 6 of the Constitution that says we have to honor ratified treaties. And one of our treaties with Ukraine said we would apprehend, detain, and extradite all parties wanted by their criminal process. And Biden is the subject, along with his son and a few others, of a long, multi-count organized crime indictment.
mhm.
So it looks like Biden did what he did to escape the consequences and get them to dismiss the counts against him. I don't know where that is. The current American media has studiously avoided dealing with that topic. So I imagine Biden wasn't doing what he was doing in the interest of the United States so much as he was doing what he was doing because allegedly his son and some other people he was sponsoring got caught making money for the family in the wrong kind of way by organized white collar crime.
Well, this also came in today. The U.S. shifts aid stance on Ukraine amid Russia policy review. President Donald Trump has decided to pause all military aid to Ukraine amid tensions following a contentious meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky. This decision comes as the U.S. explores optional sanctions relief for Russia, aiming to improve bilateral relations. Zelensky's recent comments suggesting a prolonged conflict with Russia have met with criticism from Trump, affecting U.S. policy towards the ongoing war.
See, Ukraine can't fight that without extensive and very expensive U.S. assistance.
Mhm.
So the U.S. is saying, like I just looked at my Medicare bill today and what it doesn't cost with the hospitals and stuff like that. And I'm looking at this ridiculous price, and I'm looking at cost of living increases, and I'm looking at other stuff, and I don't give a damn about Ukraine. I don't like the fact that Stalin never did deal with the Nazi problem. I don't like them trying to spread the rainbow cult. And I certainly understand that a lot of Ukrainians, especially the ones that are of recent African descent, want to go back into Russia because they're not getting a good deal right now. I understand that.
Mhm.
So we don't need to go intervene in their situation. Let them handle it.
Right.
He wants to win, he can negotiate right now and do at least a ceasefire before a lot of mess happens.
Yeah, I just think if you constantly have your hand out for Americans to, fund your war with Russia, and you have a new administration. It's like, listen, you need to come to a ceasefire. You need to come to agreement. It is about peace. It's um, you need to fall in line. You come in there and you say thank you. Let's work this out. Let's end this war. What do you need me to do?
See, look, based
Like
on
basically bend the knee.
petroleum, gas, minerals, trade, and other things are falling down with this shoot 'em up over in the Ukraine. So it's in our interest for it to stop. It would be more in our interest to normalize relationships with Russia than it would be with Ukraine. And Ukraine still suffers the sin of having been the main source of non-Germanic Nazis during the World War II era, and they never were punished for it because Stalin told the Nuremberg trials to keep their hands off. He'd deal with it, but he never got a chance to, or he let go of his chance. So Nazism is on the rebound in the Ukraine, and that's something the world does not need to face again.
Exactly. So I want to play, this is JD Vance remarks recently discussing that contentious meeting with Zelensky.
And I do think that there was just a certain sense of, there was a lack of respect. There was a certain sense of entitlement. And most importantly, look, we can look past all of that stuff, but the president has set a very clear goal for his administration. He wants the killing to stop. And I think that it's very important that President Zelensky and, of course, President Putin, too, they've both got to come to the negotiating table. And that's ultimately where things broke apart. I really don't care what President Zelensky says about me or anybody else, but he showed a clear unwillingness to engage in the peace process that President Trump has said is the policy of the American people and of their president. That's the real breakdown. Is I think Zelensky wasn't yet there, and I think frankly now still isn't there, but I think he'll get there eventually. He has to. And I do think
Yeah.
Okay, he said entitlement. I have been thinking that for the last few days. What we saw is the same kind of thing that is behind entitlement here in the United States. Because you perceive yourself as having some kind of exalted or special or particularly pathetic situation where you think everybody ought to be going, woe are they, as you are going, woe is me, and you think you're entitled to some kind of relief, that's wrong, because you're not. And people who think they're entitled to stuff ought to take a look at this and show how the real world works. It doesn't. You're not entitled just because you think you are. You have to offer something. And right now, the Ukraine has absolutely nothing to offer in return for our charity. And at this point, it's a matter of, do we act charitably when we cannot afford to without impoverishing ourselves? And if we went out on a limb, what would we get for doing it? Answer, nothing.
Yeah, because
It'd be one thing if you were defending democracy, republic, all it is, but you were defending Nazism. See, if you stripped Zelensky's shirt off and you saw the wife beating underneath, I guarantee you'd be looking at swastikas tattooed on him.
yeah. Now, and also I really, he thought that he could somehow persuade or shame Trump into eventually sending United States troops into Ukraine. And first of all, American people do not want to see that. I did read somewhere that the UK was deploying some peace union troops. I don't know, but we don't need to be sending no military troops there, and we definitely need to stop sending them money and weapons. Like it did that whole thing just has, it was a waste of money. 300 billion and more. It was just a waste of money, and we're not getting nothing from it.
Modern warfare depends upon mechanized vehicles, tanks, artillery, personnel carriers, and such like. And Great Britain doesn't even have 150, maybe 200 tanks in its whole inventory. That's not even a week's supply. So they're just talking big. They can't even staff one of their new carriers because they have leased some aircraft from the United States Navy. It's absolutely a pathetic situation. India, Pakistan, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Nigeria, all of these former possessions that they held, they're now in a stronger position than Great Britain is. It's third rate, other than the fact it still has a few decrepit nukes in its stockpile. But that aside, we don't need to be over there. There's no reason to get embroiled in that. We have too much to gain from normalization of trade with Russia than we do for getting embroiled in Ukraine. This is like our own history says we did everything we could diplomatically. We sent Ben Franklin over to France during the Revolutionary War to neutralize Britain getting involved. We sent Frederick Douglass and others over to Europe during the American Civil War to keep Europe from getting involved in the fracas we were having over here. And we need to stay the hell out of their fracas between Ukraine, which has been part of the Russian hegemony for the last 1,000+ years, and we need to let them work this out. There is nothing humanitarian about helping out a bunch of Nazis who still haven't gotten their comeuppance for what they did during World War II.
Yeah. And is it true that part of the reason why Russia invaded Ukraine, or the war started, is because Ukraine, they made a deal with Russia not to join NATO, but then they were trying to join NATO?
Yeah, well, see, all of the above. See, Ukraine had a position relative to the Soviet Union like Texas has with the United States. So let's supposing that the United States says we're going to dissolve this union and anybody can do what they want to do, and Texas decided to go its way. But 30 years after the fact, Texas said, well, we got a whole bunch of people who want to come back. It isn't so good here where we are right now. We want to rejoin. So that's what that's all about. Main thing, though, is still this resurgent Nazism.
Well,
And we have nothing to get out of it. There's not one thing we gain except perhaps principle. But the point is that Great Britain isn't putting much into NATO nor into the Euro Union's peacekeeping forces. France isn't putting much into it. Germany isn't putting much into it. And they're right there to fill the gap where in World War II, going both ways at the beginning and end of the war, tanks were pouring through that gap from the Ukrainian plains or to the Ukrainian plains from the start of World War II, 1941, 40. So, I mean, what are they putting into it?
yeah, like we can't be the only country doing all the damn work for everybody. Like, we're not everybody's savior. We need to look out for ourselves.